Emergency Medical Services, or EMS, is now over 50 years old. Just as any individual who is over 50 years old, EMS has grown up. Like most individuals, as we get older, we change, and not everyone changes the same. Some of us choose to get married, have children, while others may have chosen to stay single, have been divorced, or have had a spouse to die. Likewise, EMS is constantly changing as it matures. Not all EMS agencies change together either, or at the same pace. If EMS is to be accepted by other healthcare professions, we must become more professional. Part of that process is becoming more educated. As such, the study and practice of EMS is becoming more academic. EMT, Advanced EMT, and paramedic courses are college-level material. This presentation has been designed to help the individual who has little or no formal education after high school. Most adults over 30 who have not been to college never learned how to study properly. If you did, well, congratulations. This presentation will briefly review study habits and how to get the most out of your EMS class. The majority of this presentation was compiled from documents published by the Academic Skills Center of Dartmouth College. Much of the content has also been put in video format. You can access these and other videos and other study helps at the web address shown on your screen. This presentation will be a two-part presentation. In part one, we'll look at the reading environment, getting to know your textbook, learning by listening, concentration, and how to avoid cramming for tests. In part two, we'll look at active study, motivation, how your memory works, studying for the sciences, and studying for skills. There are many things which can interfere with effective reading. Some of these involve common sense and can easily be changed. Others are more subtle and may require long, patient effort if they are to be overcome. Obviously, we should make the simple changes first, since these will give the greatest improvement with the least amount of effort. Something which most people can control rather easily is their reading environment. A poor physical setting can make reading far more difficult than it has to be, and yet a little planning can get around most of the harmful elements you may find. It is a question of motivation. We usually can do what we really want to do. So let's look at our lighting. Often it is helpful to do your reading, the bulk of it at least, in the same place. Check the lighting there. Is it adequate? You should be able to see the page without strain. Does the light create a glare, or are you in the habit of reading in the direct sunlight? Either extreme, too much or too little light, can cause strain and fatigue and lower your reading efficiency. Stuffy rooms put you to sleep. You should have plenty of fresh air, but not a draft, and the temperature should be fairly cool. Otherwise, you'll find yourself going to sleep over the most exciting books. Your position should be neither too comfortable nor too uncomfortable. The first condition puts you right back to sleep again. In fact, some people read themselves to sleep in bed every night, which is fine if sleep rather than reading is what you're after. An uncomfortable position can create a strain, however subtle, which results in fatigue. Hold your book at an angle and keep it about 18 inches from your eyes. Remember, long arms are not a substitute for corrective lenses. If you need glasses, wear them while you read. Persistent fatigue while studying or reading might be nature's way of telling you that glasses are needed. Have an optometrist check your close-range vision if you're having problems. Most important, what about distractions you can see and hear? No matter what you think, tests show that you can only pay attention to one thing at a time. If you sit near a door or window, every movement will claim your attention. If you have a radio or stereo playing, your concentration will continually wander from book to sound. And reading with the television going combines the worst of all possible distractions. Give yourself every break. If you're going to read, prepare things so you can read unhindered. If there is something more important, put the book aside. There are times to read, and just as definitely there are times when reading must give way to other considerations. Most textbooks, including almost all EMS textbooks, have a section in the beginning of the book that describes how the book is laid out. This will explain section headers, tables, scenarios, and study questions. First, examine the title page. Find out who the authors are, what their background is. Also, look at when the textbook was published. This will tell you how current the information is. Second, examine the preface or introduction. Why is a preface written? What does it tell you about the book? And do the authors introduce any unusual features of the book? Third, examine the table of contents. What does the table of contents tell you? How is the textbook organized? What are its main divisions? Fourth, examine the index, glossary, and other material at the back of the book. How does the index differ from the table of contents? How does it resemble the table of contents? What sort of topics should be looked at in the index instead of the table of contents? What are cross-references? Is there a glossary in your textbook? Is there an appendix in your textbook? Fifth, look at the study questions, guides, and other helps. Does the textbook provide study aids to help you in understanding the text? Are the study aids in the form of questions, exercises, or activities? If questions are used, do they simply require finding the answers, or must you do some critical problem-type thinking to arrive at answers? Are there study aids both preceding and following the chapter? Which types of aids help you the most? Sixth, examine the chapter headings, sectional headings, and margin guides. Look at the chapter heading and then the section headings that follow. Write them down to see if this gives an overview of the chapter. How do the headings help in skimming a chapter for specific information? Does the text provide help in identifying material to be found within each paragraph? Does the book use summaries? And how does this help you? And last, examine any maps, pictures, charts, diagrams, and tables. Which of these visual aids are used, and do you understand them? You can learn a lot through listening. In college-level courses, it will be a prime source of information. Unfortunately, people do not instinctively listen well. Quite the reverse. Listening is a skill which must be developed. If you apply the following suggestions, you'll find yourself listening more effectively both in and out of class. Determine why the speaker is saying what they are saying, and why is it important to you. If you don't have an immediate, vivid reason for listening to a speaker, you are an unmotivated listener. Remember, the responsibility for interest and understanding lies with you, not the speaker. Learning is up to the learner. If you simply want to sit passively and blame the speaker for your lack of success, then you're not a serious learner. If you can't hear, arrange things so you can. Move away from sources of noise, human or mechanical. Sit where you can see the speaker easily or where other distractions are at a minimum. Listen to what the speaker is saying. Don't tune the speaker out because you don't like something about him or her or the message. Be sure you understand something before you reject it. Look for the speaker's pattern of organization. In a lecture, a speaker is generally referring to notes or some other source of information. You can understand much better if you're able to recognize what the speaker is driving at and how the speaker is getting there. Look for the main idea or ideas of the presentation. Facts are important only as they support the speaker's points. If you have trouble distinguishing between important and trivial, a friend or instructor can help you. Don't let your mind wander. Your thoughts move far more rapidly than the swiftest mouth, and the urge to stray is tempting. Your attention span can be increased, however, through deliberate effort. Continue to practice the habit of attention and don't be discouraged by early failures. And last, take notes while you listen. Even if you recognize everything being said, jot it down because you won't remember it later unless you do. So now we're going to look at concentration. In many colleges, over 8% of the students report problems with concentrating on their studies. Most of these students blame outside distractions for their problems. Many research studies manipulating noise levels and distractions have found that such disturbances may increase, decrease, or even not affect their concentration at all. These researchers have therefore concluded that distractors don't cause concentration problems directly. It is the way the distractors are interpreted by the students that disrupts their study. Creating a study environment. Find a place to study and keep it for study only. Tool up the environment with all your study needs. Control noise levels and the visual environment to acceptable levels. Avoid relaxing while working. Create a work atmosphere. When to study. Best during the day or early evening. You'll remember better. Best when there are fewest competing activities in progress. Best when adequate rest periods are provided. Stop studying when fatigue or lack of attention occurs. And how to study and concentrate. When distractors are present, become intensively involved. Keep a pad of paper handy to jot down extraneous thoughts that cross your mind while studying. Get them out of your mind and onto paper. Set study goals before you begin each period of study. For example, number of pages, number of problems, etc. Design adequate rewards after specified goals are attained. Break up the content of study by mixing up subjects and building in variety and interest and removing boredom. Make the most of rest periods. Do something quite different. Don't try to mix work and play. Start with short study periods and build to longer periods only as fast as you maintain concentration. If necessary, make a calendar of events to clear your mind of distractions. Realize that you won't lose friends, respect, or a good time just because you're studying. These will keep. Plan the length of your study period by the amount of material you've decided to cover, not by the clock. Often the clock is one of the most serious distractors. Now here's some basic principles about reviewing. First, original learning must take place. You have to learn the material before you can review it. Next, early review is most efficient and most productive. Before you attempt to learn new material in class or through reading, glance over your previous chapters or notes. Run through your mind what you already know. Since memorization of new material is most effective when it's associated with material already known, this process brings all available mental hooks to the surface. Immediately after learning, rework your notes, adding material that comes to mind. Don't recopy, this is wasteful. Order and organize what was learned. Star, use arrows, make additional comments, highlight, integrate new material with what you already know. Forgetting is most rapid right after learning. Review helps combat this. Relearning is easier if it is done quickly. Don't wait until it's all gone. Space initial early reviews to support original learning. Several brief periods spread over a few days is usually enough to ensure good recall for intermediate review. Intermediate review is important when work is spread out over several months or longer. For example, when the final is 4 months away, follow this schedule. First, original learning. Next, immediate review of limited material the same day. Next, intermediate review of material covered so far, for example, after 2 months. Next, final review before the exam. And next, intermediate and final review should stress understanding and organization of the material. But note, final review is a review, not cramming, of unlearned material. No new learning takes place except to draw together the final main currents of thought. Be brief. Review the entire semester's work in 2 to 4 hours. Set a limit and stick to it. Outline and organize from memory. Don't bother copying. Recite, in writing or out loud, to a friend or self. And last, use spaced review rather than massed practice. For example, 60 minutes used in 3 groups of 20 minutes each is more effective than 60 minutes used all at the same time. Break up learning period for any one subject. Avoid fatigue, review and strengthen previous learning, and increase motivation and better concentration. Now you can move on to part 2 of the presentation.